second time I'm doing this. It's that time. It's the best books of the year for 2022. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Sarah, and today we're going to talk about my best books of the year. Please ignore the kitty cats. They'll probably be darting in and out, maybe in frame. But we're going to talk about my best books of the year this year. I'm going to start with the books I don't have physical copies of because the last time I filmed this, I forgot them. So at the top of that is going to be, let's scoot over a little, Tastes Like War. This is by Grace M. Cho. This is the memoir of Grace as she deals with the death of her mother and reflects back on what it was like for her mother. Her mother was a Vietnam war bride, as they were called. She came over with Grace's father, and she talks about what it was like growing up with her mom and how she discovered some of the truths about her mom's history that she didn't know before, and also how she dealt with her mother's mental illness during the time leading up to her death. This was incredibly moving. It was incredibly beautiful, and I loved the history and some of the things that she discussed and talked about, things I didn't know, and how it all kind of tied together with the idea of food and how food can taste like home. Absolutely stunning memoir. I cannot recommend that one enough if you enjoy memoirs. That's one that I plan on having a copy of soon and rereading because I would like to take more notes and read more about the things that she had to say. Next up is going to be Drag Me Up by R.M. Virtues. This is a fantasy? This is a romance. And this is a Hades and Persephone retelling. This is a, I'm going to say it's dark, but it almost is low angst at the same time. And this is a story, it's standard Hades and Persephone. Persephone is performing at Hades' casino. I read this back towards more the beginning of the year, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't remember some of the plot points. She's performing at his casino or his club, and it's about how they fall into a relationship amid a bunch of political turmoil and strife in this kind of underground sort of world. This is what I would say it's a, and I like Katie Robert, but this is a better version of Hades and Persephone than Neon Gods was. Neon Gods was not my favorite thing, but this was amazing. Can't wait to get to the rest of the books in this series, and I would definitely, for romance fans, this is a must pick up, I do believe. Let's see, am I missing anything? If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. I believe this one is set in Korea, and it's the story of 3 women, varying age, and how they deal with the beauty standards and what life is like for women in that country. Now, this was wild to me. I'd never actually read anything set in a modern day Korea and seen the beauty standards and stuff laid out so plainly and so interestingly. And these 3 women were drawn in such a way that, like, I felt like they were real people. When I ended the book, I was sad to leave them. So this is something that it's one of those books, just like Tastes Like War, it leaves a lasting impression. It's one that I think about often, just in quiet moments. It'll come back to me and I'll reflect back on it and honestly wonder what those characters might be up to now. It was just an incredible read. And the one manga that made the list is Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0, Blinding Darkness. This is the manga that the Jujutsu movie is based on, and I don't really want to summarize it because it is a manga. It's very quick, and there is a movie, but just Rika Supremacy, I love her. This was a great introduction to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen if you are interested, and it is a 1-volume sort of standalone in the series. So if you want to try out Jujutsu Kaisen, start with this one. So now onto the books that I have physical copies of. Let's get the middle grade books done first. First up on the middle grade list is going to be Onyeka and the Academy of the Sun, and I will butcher that name. I have butchered that name, so I'm just going to let you look at that name. I'm very sorry. I'll have to look that up for future reference. This is the story of Onyeka and how she comes to find out that her father was once part of a sort of X-Men style I'm not gonna say vigilante, but like fighting force in Nigeria. And this is set in like a science fiction style future. She finds this out after her hair, which has always been unruly and uncontainable, manifests powers. She can control it, and it can operate almost like another part of her, like an octopus tentacle. It almost has a mind of its own. A beautiful story. I loved especially the focus on hair, because Onyeka struggles with her hair, and I know that from everything I've read that's a common struggle. I mean, it's a common struggle for a lot of people, but especially the Black community, and how their hair has been objectified and they've been punished for it and fetishized for it. And it was just a wonderful story. I loved that focus and the way that the author approached that. I can't wait for the next books in this. And really feel like this flew under people's radar. I think if you like Amari, you need to try this. It's super fantastic. The next middle grades that are on the bottom of my stack are going to be the Rainbow Gray books. And I should say, none of these books were have to be published this year. This is just the year that I read them. So some of these came out previous years. The first one is just Rainbow Gray, and the second one is Rainbow Gray Eye of the Storm. These are by Laura Ellen Anderson. These are super fun. These are low middle grade illustrated stories about Rainbow Gray, who lives in a world where everyone has weather magic and it's associated to colors, or in her case, a lack thereof. She finds out that she has rainbow magic, which is a unique thing that no one's seen. It's been locked away for whatever reason. It's been missing, and she manifests that, and it's her and her friends and how they're trying to save the magic of her world. Love these books, love just everything about them, from the drawings to the stories. I heard about this on Gavin's channel, who, if you don't watch, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I strongly recommend picking these up if you like middle grade. I have the third one on pre-order, and I can't wait to get that when it comes out next year. On to the one YA book on my list. It's over here. That is going to be Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This is about a Bruham named Yadriel, and he is attempting to prove himself to his family, and in doing so he accidentally summons the spirit of Julian, and that's not who he was trying to summon. Instead, they go off on this adventure to try and figure out who is murdering kids off the street, including Julian and quite possibly Yadriel's cousin. This is an incredible story about finding worth, finding your family's acceptance, and finding your own acceptance outside of your family. And this book I read once and I loved it, and then it kind of faded. I didn't reread it again until just recently, and then I remembered how much I loved it and how much of an impact some parts of this had for me. A fantastic YA book. This, I think, is indicative of how strong YA can be. I know lately it's been getting a lot of flack, but this is the sort of book that I want to see more of in YA, and I look forward to finding more of. Now, the rest of what I have, with the exception of one, are all adult fantasy. So the one that's not adult fantasy is going to be Criminal Intentions. This is season 1, episode 1, The Cardigans, and this is a long-running episodic series about two queer detectives in, is it Chicago? I can't remember what city they're in, but they're working together to solve strings of crimes, murders, that sort of thing, and their very slow burn romance of coming together. I have read the first book, and this was an absolute delight and surprise. The writing in this is beautiful. I love the vibey, atmospheric writing that Cole McCade has, and I am fully planning on purchasing and reading all of the books in this, which is unfortunate for my bookshelves because there are many. Love this series. Totally not my normal thing, but one that I ended up loving. We'll do the 2 sets of novellas by the same author. So the first set of novellas is R.B. Lindbergh's Birdverse books. The first is The 4 Profound Weaves, and the second is The Unbalancing. These are queer, normative, Persian-inspired fantasies. This one is the story of 2 elders attempting to right the wrong that was done in the past, possibly by one of the elders, in their journey into this city that doesn't accept them and will not accept them, and how they take steps to fix that, to make an impact on their world. And this one It takes place in a different location and is the story of two individuals as they attempt to save their hometown, their whole world, from being devoured in fire and flame. And just the dynamic of all of these characters, secondary, primary, all of them together, they felt rich and real, and there was this just depth to the world that I didn't expect, especially out of books that are so short. Such a good setting and world, and I can't wait for more in it. I highly recommend it if you like fantasy, or if you're looking for more queer, normative, hopeful stories. These do deal with some difficult topics, but in the end there is hope there, and there's resilience, and they're beautiful. And these did make me cry. That doesn't happen very often. You really gotta hit a tone good to get me to cry. The next two novellas are by T. Kingfisher, who has been a longtime favorite author of mine, so this is not a surprise to me. Nettle and Bone is a fantasy retelling, and What Moves the Dead is a Follow the House of Usher retelling. This is a horror novel. This one I think was just a hair bit stronger for me, just because of the message, and the idea of this was about this is about a third princess attempting to save her sister, who she's not even particularly that close to, from an abusive marriage. And this is, again, a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher, and this is about our main character as they attempt to save their friends from basically the Usher house. It takes a very fun horror approach to fungi. And honestly, how creepy rabbits can be, which I never actually thought about till this book, and now I am very unsettled. T. Kingfisher has a way of taking very mundane things and causing me to be terrified of them. Next up on fantasy, let's jump to a thick one. We're going to talk about The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. This is a Booktube darling. A lot of people really like this, and I read this for a book club. And I think that perhaps I was the only one that came out enjoying it as much as I did. This is a slow setup book for a series based in Chinese mythology and history. And it is slow, it is a setup book, but I just loved the work and effort and love that went into this. It felt like, to me, you could feel that coming off the page. So I can't wait to see where he goes next with his story and where these characters go. Be prepared for a long, somewhat slow haul if you read this, but it's so worth it at the end. I think, as my husband said, it's very quotable at times, so it's one of those types of books. If the camera angle has changed, I apologize. My battery died. Let's try and finish this up before it dies again. Next up, on the opposite side of epic slow fantasy, we have Legends and Lattes. This is by Travis Baldree. This is a cozy fantasy series about an orc named Viv and her quest to retire out to a small town and open a coffee shop. My personal theory on this is that possibly Mr. Baldree somewhere in some video game or tabletop game had an orc he played for a long time, and he wanted to find out what their retirement would be like. So he wrote this book, because that's the kind of book that this felt like. The shenanigans and antics in this felt very reminiscent of a fantastic D&D game. The setting is so cozy, the stakes are low, and it's just comforting. It's a comfort read, and I would do anything for Thimble. He is my little ratkin love, and I love him. Next up, we'll talk briefly about The Spear Cuts Through Water. This book is very difficult to summarize, but I will try. This is the story of two young boys on a quest to take a fallen moon goddess to a place where she can enact her revenge on the family that bound her to Earth. Along the way, they have a fabled spear, and the book is told from different points of view. Not only are you getting the story of the two boys, but you're also being told the story as if you, the reader, are a watcher of this great play, this great narrative in this dreamlike theater. It's a fantastic story. It's thick. As you see, this is a new copy. I haven't yet put in my notes and tabs because I read this as an ARC. It's thick, but it's in depth, and it's got a beautiful world with incredible detail, and just some of the images from this book, the way Simon Jimenez wrote them, they're seared into my brain. I can't wait to read this again. Like, I have to resist. I don't reread often. I'm trying to do it more, but I really can't wait to read this again and see more of this. There's talking animals, there's tragedy, there's love, there is acceptance and almost a coming of age subplot, and just so fantastic. And I genuinely think this is yet another under the radar book that you've got to try. I recommend. That's one of my favorite books. In fact, if you look closely at my avatar, it is one of the books that float around my little Jedi. The last book that I'm going to talk about, another book that's on that picture around my little Jedi, is A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This is a fantasy romance is how it was sold, but I feel like the romance plot is very small in this, though it is there. It's a slow burn romance between Cadu and his bodyguard. Cadu made a mistake and kind of embarrassed himself and his sister, the queen, in front of a lot of people, and he is working to redeem himself almost and fix what he did, but he's also trying to solve the mystery of what's happening to the money in his world, in his country. That is their main source of power, is their money and their trustworthiness, and something is wrong, something's not right there, and he's working to solve that. This has a beautiful, I believe it's Persian inspired fantasy world. I will correct myself if I'm wrong on the screen, where everything is queer normative, everything is detailed and rich. It's another one where I can see it in my mind. I really enjoy books where the story and the characters are so well drawn that you can see them. The plot doesn't have to be super strong, as long as those things are strong for me. I like to be transported. And this is one of those books. One that I recommend for romance readers, but especially for fantasy readers if you want something easy but enthralling and engaging. This is going to be a great book to pick up. So that is it for my best books of 2022. I am sure in a month, 2, a week, whatever, I will think of a book that I missed, or I'll read another fantastic book. But that is for future Sarah to deal with. They can worry about it. Let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are, if you're interested in any of them, and I can't wait to see what next year brings. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you again later. Bye!